I say this as somebody who grew up in New Jersey. I remember distinctly age 10 or 11. The year is 1981, maybe 1982. North Plainfield, New Jersey, big box television, Channel 7, Bill Butel, Eyewitness News, and Trump was on television. And my father looks at me and he goes, you see that fucking guy? And I said, like, yeah, yeah. He goes, don't ever be like that fucking guy. Now he goes on to vote for him eventually, which is an amazing thing. But Donald Trump was everything that you didn't want to be, um, at least in my household. How is it that so many men look at the cruelty, as you pointed out, look at the bullying, look at the nastiness, look at the grievance, the scapegoating, and see strength as opposed to weakness?
I think Donald Trump's appeal is that not so much that he appeals to Republicans, but that the right just sees us on the left as being crazy. I think on the left, we have to take some responsibility for sticking our chin out. And that is a lot of our politics were more about airing petty grievances and the inability to face adult realities and virtue signal after we made our money. And I think that so many people feel left behind by this bullshit virtue signaling with a Democratic Party that was trying to figure out what offends us as opposed to what affects us, and weren't focused on the right thing, that they love a guy that comes in and just says, F you, and is cruel and weird. I don't think Republicans are in love with Trump. I think they're in love with a guy who just inflames the other side, who they think have totally lost touch with regular people. And they conflate cruelty with masculinity, and they think he's rich. The reality is, if he had taken his inheritance and just put it in an index fund, he'd have more money than he does now. And I think a lot about young men, and writing my next book is going to be on masculinity. I think masculinity is a wonderful thing and should be embraced, but we just need to redefine it. And loosely speaking, it distills down to a couple things for me, and that is self-reliance, being physically fit, emotionally strong, figuring out a way to be economically and emotionally viable such that you can protect and advocate for others. And there's nothing less masculine than sexually assaulting or being accused of sexually assaulting 29 people. There's nothing less masculine than mocking the disabled. This is the exact definition of what it means or doesn't mean to be a man. And I think we need to educate people that this is not a hero. This is not a man. This is a deeply insecure, flawed person that is bringing out the worst in people. And we need to embrace a new form of masculinity. And by the way, masculinity is a social construct. A lot of women demonstrate fantastic masculinity, and a lot of men demonstrate wonderful femininity. But we need to get away from this culture of cruelty. And the Democratic side needs to propose a leader that is not going to just talk about petty grievances or refuse to face the adult realities that kind of defines a lot of the far left right now. We stuck our chin out. We had it coming. And we need to move back to the center and start thinking about where America really is at, and that is somewhere in the middle. But yeah, we need to move away from this culture of toxicity and cruelty. It's tearing us apart.
When you look at American history, the presidents that we grew up with, Nixon, LBJ, Jimmy Carter, George Bush, Ronald Reagan, these presidents, Reagan was born in 1911, Nixon 1913, George Herbert Walker Bush and Jimmy Carter 1924, LBJ 1908, John F. Kennedy 1917, the first president born in the 20th century, Eisenhower, FDR. All of these people, we think of that leadership from the First World War. Those people were born mostly between the early 1880s, through the 1890s. The baby boomer generation that starts with Bill Clinton in 1992 and goes through Donald Trump, through Joe Biden, who's outside that baby boomer generation, collectively, from the Bill Clinton era from 1992 generationally, how do you assess the baby boomers as having done as a generation of political leaders in the United States? I think it's a different question when you look at them and score them as a generation through innovation, through the economy, so on and so forth. But as a generation of political leadership from 92 through right now, because this will certainly be the last baby boomer election. It's inconceivable that there will be one beyond this. Now, I've also been saying that we're upon the last baby boomer election since 2020. So, I could be wrong on that.
So I've never felt like it's fair, or I don't have the skills to compare one generation to another. The thing I would say about, I think we've had some remarkably good presidents or good people as president during my lifetime. Even W. I look at W. He's going to go down as a first ballot Hall of Famer for catastrophic geopolitical decisions with what was probably one of the worst decisions since World War II, and that is to go into Iraq. But I think he was a good man. I think he generally had empathy for other people.
Absolutely.
And then
well, he's the George Bush. And progressives don't like to hear this, but George Bush directly responsible for saving over 1 million African lives, at least, from AIDS with PEPFAR, President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief in Africa. So yeah, he's a good and honorable man who made a catastrophic decision.
Look, and what I do think when we're talking about looking for leaders, the presidents I admire, Obama, Kennedy, I'm a big fan of Clinton. They were 3 of the 5 youngest presidents. What I would say, I just think we need more youth. The average age of Americans is 38. The average age of our elected leaders is 64. And so when we pass these heinous anti-choice laws where we force a woman in Florida to carry an unborn child or a fetus with Potter syndrome, knowing the kid's going to be delivered and then die a pretty gruesome death, that's just torturing young people. That's torturing women. And I think if we had more young people in office, that just wouldn't happen. And I think if we had more moderates. So we've gone to minority rule where, Congress is beginning to look like a cross between the Golden Girls and the Walking Dead. I don't think we should have a president running for office that's going to be 86 the last time a Marine One leaves the West Lawn. And the reason we're going to vote for him, and I'm going to raise money for him, is because his number one attribute is that he has common sense, he's a good man, and he's the best option to beat someone who engages in the culture of cruelty, who's just this weirdo. And I'm like, can't we do better than that? So I think there's a decent chance someone is going to emerge, and usually someone does. America's great at producing leaders that's younger that we haven't even heard of. But I think we need a lot more youth. Now, youth has a better command of technology. I'm an ageist. Young people just have an easier time. The neuroplasticity of their brain, figuring out new technology. Technology is playing a bigger role in our society. And we have a non-representative government. We have people who are too old. So what do you know? Social Security has its largest cost of living adjustment in history, but the child tax credit gets cut out of the infrastructure bill because what do you know? There aren't that many new mothers in Congress. So I don't know if I could summarize the difference between the generations. What I am a big believer in is that we need more young people in government. Our government has become too senior, just become too old. And I think that I feel it myself. I hate to admit it, at 58, I feel as if I'm becoming a little bit out of touch. I purposely try to stay engaged. I read a ton of media. I try and surround myself with young people, but there's just certain issues I'm out of touch with. And I feel like we have a government that's become, if you will, out of touch with the real issues facing the majority of young people.